Good evening and welcome to Punchline. I am Anne Kiguta, the very last show of 2019. And tonight we're pleased to host for the first time. Took him a while to get in the ring, but he is here now. Jubilee Secretary General Raphael Tuju. He is also a cabinet secretary without portfolio, and we're here to discuss party politics, BBI, the year that was in politics, and what you can look forward to from the administration in 2020. Welcome to Punchline.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm your punching bag today.
Yes, and you're a good one because I think the public will be joining me online on a few issues because it has been such a stormy year for the nation, but specifically for the party, and I want to start from there. In 2019, we saw positions harden on Deputy President William Ruto's presidential bid for 2022, to the extent that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya could claim that there was an assassination plot against him. Against that backdrop, Jubilee, many now saying, is on its deathbed. Will it make it to 2020?
Well, I think one should look at the big picture. We do have a political situation which needed fixing, and the president took some very bold steps. I mean, after every election in this country in the last 20 years or so, we have had a very bad situation obtained. Economically, the country is unstable. We have a lot of positive things for the country, but let me tell you, if you look at our ranking in the world in terms of political stability, we are number 170 out of a possible 193, 94 countries. So while, we could be doing very well in our tourism, in the economic area, there was a time, in fact, after the handshake, for 9 months, Kenya currency was the second most stable against the US dollar in the whole world. So what we all recognize, and the president recognizes this more than anybody else because he's also been Minister for Finance, is that we need to fix our politics. If we fix our politics, this country will really be able to go forward.
As the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, when you heard the Deputy President allege an assassination plot that was being orchestrated by members of the cabinet, a cabinet in which you sit, what did you make of that? And is that a matter that has been resolved?
Well, it was a bit disturbing coming from a Deputy President, but I think the other day there was another complaint by Governor Mutua from Machakos, also talking about possible assassination. I think Kenyans should take some of these things with a pinch of salt. I mean, at the end of the day, we are all politicians. And I believe that the bodies that are charged with investigating this sort of thing, the DCI, should be able to get to the bottom of this. But if he's not able to...
So you think the Deputy President was playing politics with that statement?
Well, I mean, I have a memory in this country when there used to be some refrain that, oh, money has been poured to finish me. And it helps politically when you're able to say that there's some political enemies that are targeting you.
And yet he's a high-ranking, if you like, a vice chair. A vice party leader, I should say, of Jubilee. And you have rightly mentioned that Governor Mutua has made similar allegations against him. The fact that he and a trio, I should say, of senior ranking Jubilee officials have been accused of a plot as nefarious. You're saying you don't buy it?
Well, I don't take it too seriously because I'm a politician. So I expect sometimes people to play politics. But if there's any truth, any fact to this, then it is the responsibility of the DCI to deal with it. Okay. And for that reason, I would not want to comment any further.
All right. What we've seen in the Jubilee Party, in as far as disagreements are concerned, really does go beyond what one would call party democracy. It appears to be outright insubordination against the president, who on many occasions has called on the Deputy President and those who support his possible bid in 2022 to stop the politics, to focus on development. And we've seen that not happen. They've gone as far as making some other, disconcerting comments or allegations about the president himself. Why have we not seen you push for the discipline of your members?
Well, first of all, I'm not in charge of the disciplinary committee. I try to run the party, and we do have a much bigger picture to deal with. If you look at the politics of this country way back from the year 2002, what tended to happen was ethnic alliances that would be able to produce a presidency or be able to produce a strong candidacy. It was, 2002, it was supposedly an alliance between Kikuyus and Luos to kick out President Moi, and his choice that time was our current President Uhuru Kenyatta. In 2007, 2008, we even had post-election violence, and it was that story of 41 against 1. But, you know, in 2013, the president, and please give credit to him and the deputy president, started on this journey of us trying to bring many communities together, all Kenyans together, so that we are able to make the transition from purely ethnic-based politics and building ethnic blocks, and to have a one Kenya. Now, after the elections in 2017, Kenyans, and live on TV, were even entertaining the thought of secession. The country was divided right in the middle. Now, for the president to reach out to Raila Odinga to try and bring the country together, definitely hurts and destabilizes certain political formations. I can understand the anxieties that this has brought about in Jubilee, but as the president has said, the country is even more important than Jubilee, the party.
So national unity is bigger than Jubilee unity,
Yes.
you rightly said, but yet you are the governing party, and so that is beginning to be seen as something that is affecting governance. I mean, when the deputy president of the republic can allege that cabinet colleagues are trying to assassinate him, I can imagine it's not very rosy in those meetings.
Well, I can call it turbulence, but I want to assure you, I sit in cabinet. We sit in on Tuesdays with under the chairmanship of Dr. Matiang'i. Those things have never interfered with the way
The running
things are
of
run in
government.
cabinet. Never.
All right.
I
The
mean,
party
we
has also failed to hold
outside. You know, you can hear those things
Right.
in public rallies, in funerals, and so forth. But the moment we get into cabinet, we concentrate on what is necessary to move this country forward.
The party has failed to hold parliamentary group meetings, which often allow members to vent, to build consensus. You've been criticized for not being able to have such a PG before the BBI came out and spent almost how many months? Is it a whole year politicking around what BBI would be when consensus could have been reached? At the party level first and come out with a united voice. Do you think it's going to cost you in terms of pushing a common agenda?
You know, sometimes you want to deal with first things first. And in this particular respect, it was very, very important that we didn't spend too much time fighting within ourselves as Jubilee, because we want to bring the rest of the country together.
But not even one meeting? Are you afraid of hearing the truth, what party members actually think about how the party is being run, about what they think of the handshake?
Well, when what they think about the handshake is essentially voicing their fears and how this is affecting their political strategy in terms of 2022 elections, I think it is fair to say that that is a much lower agenda than the agenda of bringing the country together.
One imagines that it would be at such a meeting where you'd be able to whip parties to line. But having said that, because we've talked a little bit about party discipline, I just want to think about it in the context of the state of Nairobi, where we've seen Jubilee also fail to, as it were, discipline members who are not even in their elected capacity running with government agenda. And Nairobi is critical to that. We've seen Governor Sonko pretty much being dismissed, even by the president himself, as a failure in a critical county like this. Did the party ever once summon the governor pre this court cases to talk about just his general conduct and the management and running of the city?
Well, if you're talking about Governor Sonko is a product of our Kenyan political culture, so to speak. Originally, the idea was to have him as the political head of the county, but we brought in a corporate qualified person by the name of Igade, who was supposed to help in establishing systems and ensure that the county is run professionally. Well, that's water under the bridge. Unfortunately, it did not work.
Did the party try to intervene to keep Igade from resigning?
No, because he didn't even tell us. We saw it on the news. And
It didn't consult anybody?
It didn't consult anybody.
Not you, not the president?
No. We saw it on the news. He had done it already, which to some extent is expected because he's not a politician. Had he been a politician, probably would have consulted and would have helped him to manage that a little bit better. But some of these things, with hindsight, you say things could have been done differently. We thought that by having a corporate person with proven management skills will help us get Nairobi moving in the right direction. But unfortunately, when he resigned...
You sound like you're saying Sonko reneged on the agreement, but many wonder how the party even believed that, knowing who he was, that he would have stuck to such an arrangement. Were you blindsided?
He was the choice of the people of Nairobi. In the whole country, he got more votes than anybody else except President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. Unfortunately, that's the reality of our politics. We went through a nomination process, which he won convincingly, and it is part of management of our political transition to deal with this kind of thing.
After Igathe's resignation, why did you not prevail on him to appoint another deputy governor, one who could fill the same gaps that you've talked about?
We tried.
And what was his response?
He didn't do it.
What did you say to him?
Well, again, there's a lacuna in the law, and I think if you look at the BBI report, it actually recommends that a governor should be forced to appoint a deputy within 90 days, and if they don't do it, they face an election. You can't legislate for everything. I mean, as we talk about that, for example, what are the rules should the position of a deputy president become vacant? Can the president... There's no provision that the president has to appoint a deputy. He can rule for the rest of his term without a deputy.
Did the party have somebody in mind?
Not really, but there are enough qualified Kenyans who can do this job.
So is there a party position right now as to whether Governor Sonko should be supported by the party to retain his position?
Well, what he's facing is a criminal charges. And when somebody is facing criminal charges, it's out of our province to even think of imposing that person to continue.
Let me put it this way. Would Jubilee members defend him against an impeachment motion?
If it is based on the criminal charges that he is facing, it will be very difficult to do that.
Sounds like you're throwing him under the bus.
Well, I think when you have criminal issues, you're throwing yourself under the bus.
You are telling the country that if MCAs are to come up with an impeachment motion against Sonko that deals with his corruption cases, then the party will be hands-off on that one.
Well, to a great extent, yes, in the sense that when the MCAs, almost 90% of them, decided to impeach Elachi, there was very little we could do because it's a political process. If, for example, when Elachi faced that impeachment, it was like 97 out of 105 or thereabout. Politically, it was impossible to save the situation, but fortunately, it was because of some dynamics between ODM and Jubilee that time, and of course, they missed some steps, and when the matter went to court, the court ruled that she comes back, and we have supported her.
And because we're seeing those dynamics play out, we saw it in Kibra, Jubilee, whilst you fielded a candidate, your party members were, as it were, allowed to support whoever they want to support. And we know for a fact that many supported the ODM candidate. Is Jubilee saying that you would be happy to lose the Nairobi gubernatorial seat to a possible arrangement with ODM? Would you like to see, for instance, Evans Kidero back in the city?
Well, I don't know if there's going to be a by-election in Nairobi. I mean, that matter is still being discussed at different levels. We have asked for an advisory from the Attorney General. The courts may have something to say about this. The Senate may have something to say about this. The Summit of Governors may also have something to say about this. So there are many variables that we are dealing with, and then of course the MCAs themselves do have their points of view.
Sounds like you're not determined to keep the Nairobi gubernatorial seat if you were to cross that line.
That is, well, we will definitely cross that bridge when we get there. But what I can tell you is that the moment a person is charged in a court of law on issues of misappropriation of resources, corruption, and so forth, that's a different ballgame. And there's no way by which, as a party, we can jump to the defense of anyone.
Is it?
We have no locus, really.
Right, but in terms of the leadership of Nairobi, because we saw that collaboration in Kibra, are you telling the country that the governorship, if you like, of Nairobi is a position that can also be reached by some kind of consensus building with ODM?
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I can tell you that there's nothing wrong with collaboration between parties. And I just wanted to go back to the BBI itself. If you look at the situation in Germany, for example, where the Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats were the alternate parties in terms of ruling of Germany, they decided to come together. And because of doing that in 2005, Germany has had the most stable government. They have had the biggest growth in their economy, and today is the biggest and most powerful economy in Europe. Competing political formations decided to come together. There's nothing wrong with that. If that will help Kenya, is something that we should be looking at.
BBI has recommended that Nairobi should be run as a metropolitan city, a special city. Is that something you support? Do you believe Nairobians Nairobi is better run by a technical kind of committee?
I think that would be useful, because you're talking about a population of 4 million. That's close to 10% of Kenya's population when you consider the outskirts of Nairobi, like Athi River, Kiambu, and the neighboring counties, so to speak. So it's a very, very heavy place that requires a lot more capacity than we are able to get from the usual MCAs. Is way too sophisticated to deal with. And of course, it's not only the seat of government, but it's also the seat of the third biggest United Nations center in the whole world. And
but is that not denying Nairobians their democratic right to elect governor like every other county? It disenfranchises a Nairobi resident from the right to elect their topmost leader.
I mean, this will not be the first place that has got that special status in the whole world. I mean, in Washington, D.C., for example, it is a special zone in the United States. There's a mayor, so there may be some avenues for still enabling public participation. It will not be the first time that a capital city is given that status.
Senator Sakaja, would you like to see him? Would the party be open to supporting him in a possible gubernatorial bid? He was on the program this past month and said, if Nairobians were to demand that he becomes governor, then he would very humbly take that position.
It would be inappropriate for me to talk about individuals in a program like this. If there's got to be any new dispensation or a competitive process in Nairobi, it would be inappropriate for me to start voicing my preferences of who should lead the place.
All right. I just want to quickly return to the question of party discipline, and we've seen Jubilee strongholds like Nyeri, for instance, become nearly battlegrounds that were synonymous with what Jubilee would allege ODM was about, party violence. How has a party like this, which used to point the finger at ODM for being violent, now seen one of its strongholds becoming the subject of the same violence that they have often decried against competitors?
Well, you can say that the Mount Kenya region is very vote rich, and anybody who is thinking about leading this country in the future must pay special attention to that vote rich region. And because two presidents have come from that area before, there is an assumption that maybe it is not likely that somebody from that region will be contesting to be president. It's an assumption. There's nowhere where it is written that they cannot produce another strong candidate to look for the presidency. And so for that reason, there's enough interest.
You think this is about Kenyatta's succession? Who's going to be the Supremo there?
That could be part of it, but there's a lot of above normal interest in Mount Kenya region. And that can create some passion and friction, and it's normal.
All right, Jubilee is expected to hold party elections next year. Is that still on course? Can you confirm to the country that you will be going through with party elections?
We will be going through with the party elections.
In March?
Yes, in March. We're going to face it in the sense that it will, we don't have all the money that IBC, for example, has to be able to run a party, to run an election throughout the country. So we'll face it in different ways. We've drawn some plans of exactly how to do it in the best way possible. And remember, this is not something which is being imposed from the outside. It is not a directive from the Registrar of Political Parties exactly how we should do it. It's not statutory in any way that we must do it, but we want to do it because we want to build the party.
What do you mean by phased elections?
For example, we'll take some counties at a time. We cannot do all the 47 counties.
Okay, so you're gonna when does this roadmap start in? And you start in March. When do you hope to be concluded with the nationwide party?
Actually, want to start as early as January, February, but I do have a roadmap that I'll be discussing with the party leadership, and I don't want to discuss that on a program like this before I presented it to the party.
So it hasn't
leadership.
been presented yet.
Yes.
But will you be starting, for instance, in Nairobi?
Not necessarily. We may decide to start with the less densely populated areas so that we can learn some lessons and be able to improve as we go along.
Even the thought that you're going to stagger these elections raises the concern that the party is primed for what many politicians have said on this program will be all-out battle for the control of Jubilee, because you have some of your, if you like, your big winners, your big ticket winners in the last elections being the same ones who feel aggrieved by the manner in which the party has treated them. Even if you were just to use Mike Sonko's example alone, is this plan that you are talking about one that you hope would make the elections perhaps less, now I'm trying to be diplomatic here because you're a diplomat. Let me just say you don't want a bloodbath. That's why you're going to take it a day at a time.
Yes. Let me say this. Party elections, like any political process, are conflictual. And you don't expect always to have consensus on how you do things. There will be losers and there will be winners. There are certain aspects that we'll look at. For example, at the grassroots level, we want to deal with the gender issues there so that, that is dealt with at that level. There are also issues to do with the Regional Balancing Act. I mean, the very reason why Jubilee came together was to have the face of Kenya in its leadership. So those are factors.
You're trying to stop the deputy president from wresting the control of the party from those who are seen to be against him, and you're one of them who has been sort of branded as part of the Stop Ruto movement.
You can't stop people from branding you, but I can tell you that I do enjoy a very cordial and respectful relationship with the deputy president. In fact,
even after that infamous phone leak?
Let me just finish this. In fact, I've discussed about the party elections more with him than I've discussed with the president.
And so he accepts this staggered plan of elections?
Yes.
Is that what you say?
Yes.
You're talking about how cordial is it when in that leak that I have described, you seemed to be, first of all, was it you in that phone call?
Well, you're a journalist and you know some software called Cakewalk. I can make you say exactly what you did say. But I've never denied that it wasn't my voice. What I've said is that the context and some amount of editing which was put on it so that then it tried to create a conflict between me and the deputy president. But always I've been ready to discuss the substance.
But one thing, even if people could have left certain parts out, I don't think it is in doubt that you appeared in that phone call to be making a mockery of the deaths of Kenyans in Kiambaa, suggesting that a memorial there could settle political scores. That wasn't in doubt.
Let me tell you, in 2007, 2008, people were killed at my home. People died in my home. Any Kikuyu who was in that part of the country, in Siaya for that matter, they were not safe even in police stations. They were brought to my home. So when it comes to post-election violence, it is personal to me as well. In fact, my father died without ever forgiving me for letting this kind of tragedy visit his home.
So how could you joke about it?
I can't joke about it.
In whichever, given respecting that history, how could it be the subject of a conversation like that, where it was clear that it was, you know, the possibility of a memorial there would be to up the ante in attacks against the deputy president's campaigns.
That's how the tape was manipulated. But I tell you, I'm very sensitive about these things. I was a journalist like you many years back, and I covered Rwanda, the massacre in Rwanda. And indeed, the Rwandese government still invite me for all the anniversaries with respect to the massacre which took place in that country. I was there even early this year and last year as well. I covered, you know, a lot of deaths in the Eritrea, Ethiopia
With
war.
respect to that, so what exactly is it that you said? How exactly was that statement taken out of context?
I think it was taken out of context to the extent that you're saying that I was joking about it. You can't.
But you were laughing.
Well, you can get my laughter and put it anywhere you want in any conversation using Cakewalk software.
We're taking a break with Raphael Tuju. We'll be back after this.